Hello, welcome to the Erik Williamson Show. This is episode 39. I'm your host, Erik Williamson. This podcast is focused on book and course reviews in business, sales, training, and investing, and occasional educational episodes. My goal is to break down what's actually worth studying, what's overrated, and what you can realistically apply to improve your skills, income decision making, without wasting your time or money. Disclaimer: this podcast is for entertainment purposes only. This is not financial, legal, or tax advice or services. I'm not a licensed financial advisor. Always do your own research and consult with a licensed financial professional, tax professional, legal professional before making any decisions. So today's episode is how I passed the Nevada P&C. So I'm super excited to share this with you. Um, Man, this was a hard test. I took this test 4 times. I took it 3 times in California, and I think the pass rate is 60%, and Nevada is 70%. And I was able to pass in Nevada at 70%, 10% higher than California. I don't know where California's at now, but that was back then when I did it, when it was 6, 7 years ago. So basically, I'm fully licensed in life and health and P&C. There's other insurance licenses as well. But let's break this down. So if you're studying for the Nevada P&C, also this could help you in other states as well. But specifically for Nevada P&C, let me break down what I did in order to pass the first time of taking the test in Nevada. So I took the test 4 times, but the first time in Nevada. So something I learned from my coach is a 90-minute study block. So basically, you study for 90 minutes per day on a subject matter, whether that be the final exam or a section on the material. So when I used to study for my professional licenses, uh, I have an episode where I talk about how I got all those licenses, but specifically today I'm talking about Nevada P&C. I did a 90-minute study block, so basically it's to my coach, Sunil Bhaskaran. I'll put his information in the notes below if you want to contact him and help him pass the exam. But basically, the 90-minute study block made the difference because what I noticed is when I would study for 3, 4, 5 hours straight, my brain will get fried and I would lose focus and my comprehension would go down. But when I did the 90-minute study block, I was laser focused for 90 minutes and also it's doable. So I did this while I was studying with a full-time job. I was doing sales and I was able to study after work for 90-minute study block. Some days I was tired, I would do 30 minutes. But basically, I'm gonna do a podcast after this talking about the side A's. You have to work on stuff every single day. Even if it's just a little bit, 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. So let's see about the study. I've been studying since January, but I was doing my other licenses, continuing education for my real estate and my life and health. But I was also studying this license. But basically, I just did a little bit every day. And the max I would study was at 90 minutes, sometimes 3 hours on the weekends. But basically, that was the secret. And then the other thing I used was the right provider. So I've been using Exam FX. I'll put that in the show notes below. But Exam FX is a high pass rate. I know when I took my life and health with them, I passed the first time. So they're a great provider. Their pricing is pretty reasonable. The only downside is they time the material, so you only get it. I don't know, is that let's say you get it for 90 days and you got to renew every 30 or 60 days. You have to keep renewing, keep renewing. It's not like a year supply, but basically, I had a whole year with the material. Now, with the Nevada P&C, you had to study, I believe, 40 hours in pre licensing material, going through the certain sections and then passing all the quizzes. So that way you can take the exam. But yeah, that's how I passed the exam. So 90-minute study block, exam FX for the provider, uh, and then to study and then take. I took my time. This thing I didn't rush the exam. I made sure I understood it thoroughly and understand everything so I could pass the first time. I think that's the mistake I made when I fell 3 times in California. Is I was rushing it. I was rushing the process. I was cramming. I was studying for lots of hours. I think I was studying like 6 hours a day, and it just wasn't working. P&C is a pretty hard license. I say that license harder than the Series 7, in 66. And those licenses are pretty difficult. The P&C is pretty difficult. The reason why is mainly on law, so it's very dry material, it's very boring, nothing exciting. There's a lot of memorization too. You have to memorize a lot of things, but what's the benefit of getting a P&C license? You can get a W-2 job. They pay pretty good. Also, if you get the life and health, you become fully licensed. And the insurance industry is pretty good industry to get into. You can get a lot of sales jobs with base salary plus commission. And other sales jobs where you can, especially on the health side for Medicare, you do Medicare sales. You get a base salary plus commission, and you get leads. So insurance licenses are very good to get. Uh, they're a good way to do business. There's other insurance like personal lines and surplus broker, but those are a little more advanced. Uh, with the P&C and life health is a good start to get. So I was told from somebody that other thing going through an insurance company, he said if you pass the P&C, you can pretty much pass the life and health. So you might as well get them together. Uh, but even the life and health, like I said, the provider I used was Exam FX, and then that was a great provider. And then another thing I did is I took the final exam, and I talked about this in my other episode, trying to get 85%. And I was getting 80% on the final exam, on the practice final exam. So just consistently taking the final exam over and over and over and over, and then finding your weak links. So mine was, I think, chapter 3 and 4, the P&C that I was weak at. So I would study the weakness, doing 90-minute study blocks, doing my weakness. And then I'll go back to the final exam and keep taking until I got my score in the 80s consistently, and then I passed. So that's the key to passing these exams is getting your final exam into the 80s, preferably 90s, but sometimes it's really hard. Like the P&C, I could never get it to 90s, but I still pass the regular exam. But get at least to the 80s, doing 90-minute study blocks, and then picking the right provider. So last time I picked Kaplan, I had a hard time passing, but when I picked the ZFX, I passed the first time twice. So they're a very good provider. So I'll put the link in the show notes, but you can check them out. But that's how I passed. So you guys have any comments on anything? I'll try to respond if I can. But that's how I pass, and I'll go from there. So this podcast is for entertainment purposes only. This is not financial, legal, tax advice or services. I'm not a licensed financial provider. Do your own research. Consult with a licensed financial tax professional or legal professional before making any decisions. If you're getting value from the show, please rate me on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe to the channel. And let's get it.